It's vacation week for me. We're taping this and I'm getting the fuck out of Dodge. Suck at YouTube. I don't want to make your money anyway. Anyway, Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out the Voter Guide 23 that I'm not going to work on this week. I promise you that. But I'll get it up here sooner than later. The Compass guys and I are working on trying to get some forums put together so we can actually have some debates. And the whole argument that we're going to be pitching at these candidates is that we're a non-biased body to do this because apparently the League of Women Voters is biased, according to Republicans. So, anyway, we're almost in agreement. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Catch us out there. So we're going to do a show. Here we go. What's up, my friend?
Hey.
What's new?
Nothing.
All right. Well, that's exciting. I'm not as sick. I'm feeling better.
I don't know why you expect something new happen week to week.
I don't know.
I appreciate the question, but I'll let you know if there's ever anything new.
Because I care about you, and I want to know.
Well,
I want to know about you.
Okay.
And things that are going on in your life that I might have missed because I have other things going on in my life, which means I'm not paying 100% of my attention to your life.
Surprise. I mean, you have a life outside of me?
I do.
Holy shit.
It's not much of one. That's not true. But you're a very important piece of my life, but you're not the totality of it.
All right.
I'm sorry.
I'll let you know if there's ever something new.
I'm going to keep asking anyway.
Well, please stop.
No.
Okay.
I won't. I'll keep asking because I care.
All right.
And do you really want me to stop asking? How are you doing? What's new? What's going on with you?
How's it going? I mean, something new. I'll let you know if there's
Hey,
ever
happy birthday.
It's not my
birthday. It's
birthday.
a little early.
Yes.
Well, we're not going to be here for your actual birthday.
True that.
Somewhere in the next 14 days, your birthday happens. I'm not going to tell.
It shall be.
Some of these listeners, I mean, you don't look a day over 29.
Yeah.
You're good to go. I was joking with somebody about how you pissed me off like that.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't know you, I would guess that you're lower to mid 30s if I was guessing. Like if I didn't know.
No, I mean you don't got gray yet.
I got a bunch in my beard, and when my sides grow in, I got patches.
Huh.
But I would say that if I like met you just hanging out one night, like playing cards or something like that, and they're like, how old do you think that dude is? I'd be like, yeah, maybe 35 at high end. So, and you can eat whatever the fuck you want to eat and stay skinny, you son of a bitch.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm going to gut.
Relatively, you're way skinnier than me, jackhole. I don't know, the sheriff and the mayor figure out their budget.
I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, they had a presser this morning about it. I don't know. I don't quite understand the financial maneuvering that's happening because no new taxes. There's no real changes in it. The sheriff is giving up 29 positions.
Huh?
He's giving up as far as he's budgeted for 300 officers. He hasn't had more than like 210 in like 5 years. And so he's been short. And I mean, the Spangler's argument has been, I'm short because I don't pay him enough. I need to pay him more so I can get him in here. But he's short like 90 officers, or like 60 officers, actually, I think is what it really is.
But he wants to cut 20, 30 something more.
And so the exchange is, well, because the problem is it's the way the function works. It's not that the sheriff gets a total budget. He has to do certain things with certain parts of the budget. He is budgeted for, again, I don't know the exact number, but for conversation's sake, he is budgeted for 300 officers starting at $44,000 a year or whatever. That's what he's budgeted as. And so he can't take that, of the 50 officers that he's short, he can't take what would be their salaries and put it other places. He has to have that set aside because it's allocated for a certain number of employees. And so basically that's basically what they're doing is saying, well, you can't hire anyway, so let's take all the money for all those officers and we can roll that back into the officers that you have and raise their base salary. And so 29 officers of the 60 or so they're short are no longer going to be allocated, and that amount of funding will now roll back into everybody else as part of the way to get these salaries come up. Like, I don't know. The gross one, and I hate to do the comparison, and it's going to be a big talking point amongst the social peoples this week, is as this goes through, brand new, straight out of high school, corrections officer, GED or diploma is the minimum requirement, and that's about it. A pulse and a diploma is about all you need to be a corrections officer. Will be getting paid more than a starting teacher in Knox County. You know, I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't put a lot of thought into how much I think that's real or not. The really gross part of it, because some of the questions that were asked at this presser is like, well, how are you going to pay the difference? Because that 29 officers that you're not hiring anymore, and that amount isn't going to cover the difference. One of the solutions on the table, not officially on there yet, is that it will be a $10 processing fee. You get arrested, whether you get charged or anything or not, you get arrested, it's $10. You got to pay $10, and that $10 will roll into officer salaries. I'm sorry, that's fucking bullshit. That's trash. That's super trashy. You are incentivizing them to arrest people so they can make sure their fucking checks clear.
I could see maybe that's sticking with you upon like conviction or you pleading no contest.
I mean, you got to pay rent as
Right.
as an inmate.
Right.
Like, you get out and have bills to pay.
Right.
Like the two major things that they're talking about as new income to help offset these costs was that $10 you got arrested tax, and apparently there's an agreement with the state. The state pays $41 a day for any inmate that is a state that is on, like, was arrested by a highway patrol or something like that. If it's a state offense,
Right.
not something that is technically under the jurisdiction of, but so if the highway patrol or whatever is using Knox County Detention Center, they pay $41 a day per inmate. And at least according to Spangler, it costs them about $83 a day. And so they're going to try to force the state to pay more. And that'll help make up some of the difference. And then the long-term pension, they're cutting long-term pensions, sort of. It's a weird thing. It's a weird little shell game for that one, as I understand it.
So when do these for-profit prisons that are overcrowded decide they weren't making enough money? Or still aren't able to make enough money?
Knox County is public. It's not a for-profit.
Is it?
Okay, this is that is property of Knox County. Might be. I'm not sure. It might be property of the state of Tennessee. I mean, either way, it's technically property of the state of Tennessee. Either way,
There's been a handful. I don't know if it's necessarily jails, or I don't think it's just prisons. I know there's some jails that private companies have come in as like the administrator, basically. I think it's still kind of owned by the city or the county.
As far as I understand, local at least is like Sheriff Spangler is the head of the sheriff's office, and then he has a corrections department, which is his admin. But I mean, as far as I understand it, those are all sheriff's department employees. So locally, at least, I do know what you mean. I know there are things that are private prisons out there. I mean, if you want to go down the private prison rabbit hole, we can. I don't see an issue with it. It's just the same as a bunch of other stuff. It's how you set the incentives up. If you incentivize them to keep people there longer and have no rules or regulations on how they're allowed to treat the human beings that are in there and stuff like that, then of course overcrowding and overpenalized and all that kind of stuff is going to happen, because that's how you make money as a private prison. You have to figure out how to incentivize it to get the result that we as the community want. I don't think we as the community want. Well, I'd take it back. I'd say there's some people that probably do. They're perfectly happy to say, I don't care. Throw them in a box. Throw some food at them twice a day. Spray them with a hose. It's good enough. I'm sure there are people out there that feel that way about anybody, regardless of what their crime is.
True.
But I think on a whole, I don't think that's what we as a society really want our prison system to be. And so, again, to me, you got to figure out the incentive to get the result you want. Do we want people to go in, get their shit together, and come back out and be useful people? That's what I want. Personally, that's what I would hope for. I think there are a significant number of people that just need to go in and stay in forever. They're just incapable of being functioning members of society at the end of the day. It happens. It sucks. Don't know what else to do with it. But I think for a lot of people, when it turns into this like revolving door system where it's like you get out and you're in debt to the state for your rent, your back rent for your room for the last 5 years, nobody will give you a job because you're a felon.
Right.
And it's like, what are you supposed to do? Like, you're just going to go out and live in squalor. Prison's not as bad as squalor. So at some point it becomes an advantage to you as an individual to go back to jail, and that doesn't sound like a good way to work things either.
Right.
So anyway, the president interrupted Wheel of Fortune tonight to brag about his debt ceiling raise and getting the budget thing figured out. And at the same on the same wonderful Friday, Sheriff Spangler and Mayor Jacobs figured out their. So we don't get to watch the lawsuit. Jesse and Scott were very disappointed, just for the journalistic aspect of it, because it's something that's happened very rarely in the state, where a department head, sheriff being an example of one. Because the rule, as I understand it, is if it's an elected department head, if they don't feel like the county that they're a part of is giving them the budget required to do the job that the state requires them to do, that's where this thing that Spangler was teasing, threatening, would kick in. So, like, technically, the trustee's office could do it too, because that's an elected department head, and he can like, I guess it's Biggs, excuse me. He could be like, Mayor Jacobs isn't giving me enough money to run my office the way I need it. So I can't. So I'm going to sue the county to whatever the whole process was. And so yeah, Scott and Jesse were bummed. They really wanted to see the process play out.
Would be interesting. So I wonder how they split up the lawyers, because essentially one county employee.
Right. Technically, the law department represents both of them.
Yeah.
Which is, it's been an issue. The school board has sued the county or has been in legal disputes with the county from time to time, and you have this weird little, they assign different attorneys in the office, or they bring in an outside attorney for one and not the other.
Right.
Which I think on a surface level, that's bad too, because it's like, well, which one's a better lawyer? The one that works for the county, or the one that's a private practice?
Who gets to bring in the big guns?
Yeah. Is it a big firm that knows what they're doing, or is it a shitty random firm? And it's like, it seems like it'd be an easy handicapable debate. So yeah, anyway, I personally will be keeping a watchful eye, and I will be pitching a fit if they, do the $10 you got arrested for no crime tax. I think that's kind of shitty. Yeah, I think that's shitty.
Yeah, I'm sure they could have found better ways.
Well, because it rolls into we got 1 month till all the stuff in this, not all the stuff, but a bunch of the stuff in the session rolls in to officially take hold. All the different things that they voted on this year. Most of them will go into effect July 1. And the hemp law one, and the one thing on this little hemp law thing that's coming in that really bothers me is that it puts the burden of proof on you, the defendant, technically, in the conversation, if you were caught with a maybe marijuana product. And I think that is a what's the word I'm looking for? It is morally wrong to me to have a system set up that way. My understanding of the way the justice system is supposed to work in this country is that it's the responsibility of the state to prove that you have committed a criminal act. Now, you can have probable cause, and that can get you in the door to ask questions and stuff like that. Sure, whatever. But this new hemp law explicitly states that it is your responsibility to prove that joint you have is legal. And I just think I have a philosophical, a significant philosophical issue with that being in there. I'll be curious if somebody plays it out and goes through the process of suing the state for, suing a police department for a false arrest or whatever, because, and then therefore suing the state because the police will be the police will be technically following the law, but is the law legal? And I don't think that should be legal personally. I don't think you should be able to put a caption in that law like that.
I'll be curious to read the wording of it.
It basically says is you need to have the original packaging. So that, it doesn't say it explicitly as I continue, but to me, it says you must have the original package, and then the ellipses in my brain is so that you can prove in the event of questioning that this is a legal product. Why else would you need to keep it? I don't
know. I'll see what you're saying.
So, I think that's strategy. And again, the more I think about it, this is one of those where I get stuck in two places at the same time. Professionally, this is a good thing for us. It's a good thing for me and my business. We are now well within clear legal, there's clear legal guidelines that we can work within, and we can show the receipts that we're above board. We don't have to even question or consider or be concerned about legality stuff. It's like we have a clear roadmap of how to make sure we're doing this legally. I like that. That's nice. It'll likely, big gas stations, little gas stations, pilot size or Casey's or Weigel's with their, 100 locations and stuff like that probably will quit messing with any of the CBD, THC relative products just because it's not a big enough seller for them to pay for the permit they're going to have to get to carry it.
I'm not sure if the major ones are even carrying any of it. I don't know.
I mean, Casey's over here has like a little single, plexiglass box that sits on the counter that's got a bunch of like carts and like 2-pack gummies and stuff like that in it.
I guess I hadn't seen it.
Not a ton of stuff, but that's what I'm saying though. It's like it's one of those boxes that the wholesalers will sell, and it's $500 for the box. It'll sell for $1,000.
Yeah. And
they just sell you the whole box, and then you just sell it, and you don't really give a shit about it. But I mean, if you have to pay $250 a year, and you're sitting there going, "Well, I went through that box 3 times. That entire box made me $1,500. Is it worth the pain in the ass to have to change my computer system to charge the special tax for it, and the annual paperwork and fee for all of my stores to keep this product in here?" So on the professional side, that's good for us. It's good for me. Like I was telling the story to somebody else. Like in the early days of vape, the gas station vape was one of the hardest things to get people over when they would wander in to see us. It's like, "Oh, well, I tried some of that shit at the gas station. It was awful." I don't like. It'd be like somebody come with somebody else, and like somebody who'd been vaping for a little bit and been a customer for a while, and they drag their buddy along. And their buddy's like, "I tried that bullshit. I got some shit at the I got the whatever at the Pilot. And it was awful.
Yeah.
Made my throat hurt. Blah blah blah." It's like, well, it's because you bought trash.
Right.
But in their head, that's the whole image of the vape industry at that point, and it took a lot of work and effort to help them understand the difference between what we sold and what the gas stations sell. And so this will help jump that gap for us professionally. So it's a good thing professionally. Like I'm excited about it on the professional side, but philosophically, I think it's bullshit. I think for the most part, this is making up a law, making up regulation, making a new tax on something that everybody was doing anyway. Not everybody. That's a totality statement. Most everybody was doing anyway. The Compass guys did an article on it, and I yelled at them because it's like, "Why don't you come to me?" But they did an article on it with Dr. Jane out of the Old City, who actually ran for state senate back in the first year we were doing the show. She's probably one of my first 4 or 5 interviews. She's a fun lady. She's like a chakra healer, chiropractor, herbalist, and so she got into. She has a cool place. So it's right next to the Melting Pot in the Old City. It's Dr. Jane's apothecary or whatever.
All right.
But they went and talked to her about it, and she's all excited about it. She thinks it's great, and that's like, again, professionally I think it's great too. But philosophically, it's like, well, at least for the Scott and Jesse's perspective, the couple of people that they know that are in the industry, me and Dr. Jane, everything that this law puts in place, we do anyway. So, like, Briggs introduces the law as a consumer protection thing.
All right. But at the same time, that it was essentially, or it is still kind of essentially a bit of a Wild West because there is.
Well, for another month.
Right. Saying most shops are doing it, but this actually puts limitations on what can and can't be done at said shops.
Sure. But again, most shops, the most professional, probably the ones that are doing the best in actual sales and are going to last the longest anyway, are doing all this anyway. The fly-by-night shitty people, they're still going to be fly-by-night shitty people. And I don't know that this really stops them from doing it. I don't know that this. I don't know. Like, it makes it more difficult. But at the end of the day, like,
gives them a reason not to.
But I mean, Department of Agriculture, it will be the enforcement arm of this thing, and they'll come out and mostly they'll be in like the manufacturing side of stuff. They're not going to be going into retailers. But the sheriff's office and KPD will probably put people on their sting list, which actually, now that I think about it, is probably fucked up. But anyway, but KPD and the sheriff's office, they're not going to know who has a permit and who doesn't. If Billy's Buds on Magnolia or whatever, I don't know, I'm making shit up. It's not a real place. I hope not, at least. I'm trying to make it up. But if Billy's Buds or whatever doesn't get their permit and keeps selling, what are the odds of,
right.
I mean, hell, what are the odds of the Department of Revenue figuring it out, let alone KPD or the sheriff's office or the Department of Agriculture or anybody else involved? And if they're a shitty retailer that doesn't give a shit and is trying to skirt the law anyway, what's going to stop them from continuing? Nothing. Eventually, they might get caught.
All right, like I said, city or county comes in. They're not looking for the license. They're going to be looking specifically at if you're karting.
Right, but I think
can only.
But I would wager
they can
that
only go what's in their wheelhouse.
But if
Department of Ag would come out and make sure you had your license.
But if they're going to go and set up their sting operations where they bring a cadet in to go shopping and
Right.
test the car thing, I'm assuming they start with a list of people that hold the permit, not with just businesses they know that sell it. I would think that would be my guess. My guess when they're doing sting operations, it's not like they just drive down Kingston Pike and every time they see a place that has a restricted product, they just stop in and see what happens. I'm going to guess, and I don't know this. I'll call Spangler now that he's got his budget figured out.
It's an easy search.
On how they do it.
No, it's an easy search on looking up shops.
I agree, but I'd still.
It's not something they would have to let me go to the city and let me get a list of
I will bet
all the business holders.
All right, I'll put that on my list of shit to do. I will try to get a hold of the sheriff's office and figure out how they produce that. They probably won't tell me, even if it.
Yeah, I doubt they will.
But I would bet you they don't. I bet you they would go to the Department of Ag and say, who in Knox County has a permit? Let's go check. Let's go work with some of these people. That would be my guess, because that would be the easiest way to do it.
Why?
It's not the easiest way to do it. Sure, it is.
It's a hell of a lot easier. Pull up your laptop and go bloop, bloop, bloop. Just type it in. There's everything. Damn near everything. There's a location. You can click on directions. Department of Ag will give you directions.
No, they won't. I mean, I would hope as the police department you have a general.
I'm just saying it's
a
easier
general comfort with the streets
it's easier to find the shops
and places in your town.
I don't think they would have to go to that Department of Ag. I think that's a lot more steps than.
I doubt it. I'm sure it's something that inside the database that's available to a Knoxville Police Department or a sheriff's office from the state, they could go and they could search it themselves.
I doubt they have
just print a
access
list.
to. I doubt they have access to that.
All right, another good question, but I would think they would. I would think they would. I wouldn't see why they wouldn't. If it's something that's in their wheelhouse to as part of their directive of things that they need to keep an eye on, I would say that lists of businesses that have age restrictions, stuff like that, would be something that the state would produce for them.
Again, it's not within their jurisdiction. So I mean, them looking at licenses is not within their jurisdiction.
No, but them doing
stings,
them doing stings for age verification is. And I would highly doubt that Sheriff Spangler just sends a couple guys out with a cadet and says, "Just go find places."
No, I'm sure they make up a list,
and I would bet that list comes from the state.
All right,
that would be my bet.
Sure.
I just don't. I wouldn't see them just I don't know.
I'd see it as a waste of time to have to go through the state. Will you please give me a list of who has licenses?
I don't know. Okay.
Doesn't make sense to me. It's easier just to just type it in a search browser. Boom.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't know that I agree that it's easier. I guess I am disagreeing with that part too. But I don't know. Maybe this is me being too generous to the form and function of an office like that they would have some sort of protocol on how they go about doing things, not just flipping randomly through the yellow pages. Metaphorically, because the yellow pages don't exist.
Right.
I mean, they do online, but
yeah.
Aside, that's the only thing that goes into effect on that law for July 1 anyway, is the age verification, which again, most of us do anyway. But we'll see. We'll see how it rolls out. I can't wait to get stung. That'll be hilarious. It better be hilarious, or I'm going to fucking murder somebody. We better be laughing about it. It better be hey, cops came in and tried to sting us. We did it right. Good job. Because if it's anything but that, I'm going to be fucking angry. Yep. What else was it? We were just talking about a couple things on the chatter chat. Your memory's a little rough, buddy.
When?
Well, because you texted earlier today. I can't recall when we talked about child labor, which was last week.
I meant last week. I meant as a frame of reference that when we talked about it, I wasn't saying I don't remember when.
All right, I don't know how to read. That's then fine. I apologize. Your memory's great. I'm an idiot.
I remember we talked about it last week.
Oh. I don't know. I mean, help me out here. Can't recall when we talked about child labor, about how the ag industry is the only one that doesn't have to abide by the most federal labor.
I can't remember if I mentioned that. We talked about child labor laws last week.
You talked about it with green card things or something like that. With immigrant labor was part of it, but I didn't think. My understanding of the way you introduced it last week was that it was just it had to do with immigrants, and they're like that. They don't have as many. Not in ag at large.
Right. That's one aspect of it. That's when we were talking about just general, just shortage, and then kind of on. And in addition to, they're also being, or where there were states that were looking to add possibly hiring minors or lowering the work age requirements, or lessening work age requirements. That was an interesting thing that I saw, that apparently the agricultural industry itself is one that doesn't necessarily have to abide, for the most part, with child labor laws, as far as not working past certain hours or not giving them so much time to go to school.
Right. I mean, more or less, at least originally, that's why our school year is set up the way it's set up. Like,
partially in some areas,
but I mean, that's like why do like. You know, I'm not a fan of year-round school. Don't get me wrong. I don't know. I'm go back and forth on how I feel about it. I'm a fan of year-round school when my kids aren't in school. Problem with year-round school to me is that, like, when this vacation we're doing next week is a broader family vacation. It includes my brother and his kids that are in town, so our school schedules are the same. But my sister and her family live in Colorado.
Yep.
If they're on a different cycle of year-round schooling, or if there's some rule, like not some rule, but some unwritten rule where, like, every school in the state or in the country has like 1 month off in the summer at the same time, then every vacation spot will get overflowing because that's the one month that everybody goes on vacation. Mm-hmm. Selfishly, for that reason, I don't necessarily disagree with the premise of year-round school functionally. I don't see why. I don't understand. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me the way we do it. You know, especially with how much they talk about that first 2 to 6 weeks of school is really just kind of getting back in gear, remembering how to actually walk the halls and do that kind of stuff, and then reviewing what we did the last year before we took our break. And then we start learning.
Right.
So I'm not opposed to year-round school. I actually think it'd be a good overall move. I'm a little concerned about the summer school thing that started. Because according to my rising 7th grader, everybody that's in summer school with him are the most delinquent kids in his middle school. Like, some of them are just kids that truly need help. Like, they truly are just behind. English is a second language kind of stuff. Some friends of ours that are just bad students, not bad kids, just bad students. They don't take care of their work and stuff like that, and so they don't do well in class, and so they need this extra time. But most of them are kids that miss significant time for suspensions, miss significant time for expulsions. You know, just like every kid he's ever seen in a fight is in middle school or is in summer school right now. It's like, well, shit. Usually we say go to school and make friends. Not right now.
All right.
Yeah, just do your shit and go home. Let's get you out of there. So we'll see how it pans out. But
I mean, I would think with something like that, they'd be even that much less likely to put up with that shit. It's like, hey, this is your last chance. Like, it's time to be fucking around.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, you know, like, I don't, you know, these are, I don't know. It's not a fair thing to say, I guess, either. Nobody should be pigeonholed into one thing for the rest of their fucking life because they made a bad choice one day at school. But, you know, the little hairs in the, you know, paranoid dad stick up going like, I don't want him to go through the summer school program and like get really good friends with this kid that's a problem. Just a problem kid that consistently a problem kid. And now my kid's friends with them. And then when the regular school starts up next year, they're hanging out and doing stuff in the hallways, and now my kid starts rolling into
maybe your kid can be a good influence upon that.
Maybe. That's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's the way I should look at it. My kid's going to make this kid a better person. Right. You've met my kid. How much do you feel like that's the truth? I love my kid. I love both.
He could be influenceable. He's
a good kid. He is. He's kind of a doof sometimes, but he's a good kid. So budgets and stuff. We talked about it a little bit in how interesting it is that both the mayor and the sheriff figure out their budget the same day that McCarthy and Biden figure out theirs. So the Senate passed earlier this evening. It was such a big deal that Mr. Biden gave addressed the nation and interrupted Wheel. Not only Wheel, but it's Star Wars Week on Wheel. So I missed a whole section of Star Wars Week on Wheel to listen to Biden talk about this. We figured this thing out. And the one thing to me, and that at least said this was, I don't know if the Senate made any adjustments. I haven't looked into how the Senate voted on it and if they made any amendments to it before they passed it.
I think so.
But in the House version that I saw.
So I don't know if they could have done that all in one night. Essentially, because if they change it, it has to go back to the House to get reapproved. So I don't think they changed it at all.
Yeah, so my understanding of it is Social Security, Medicare are cool. No, we're not touching that shit. They clawed back some money for the IRS. Ooh, excuse me. They put some work requirements on a very small subsection of people in the WIC programs and stuff like that. But apparently, all said and done, WIC is actually probably going to expand due to this, not shrink. So there'll be more people on food stamps. More people will be eligible to take food stamps. The Pentagon budget went up. So I'm not sure where any savings came from in this whole debate. I'm really confused. I haven't really heard of anything getting significantly cut. It was just a little bit out of the IRS. Anyway.
I think it just capped some kind of spending increase at like 1% for the next 3 years. Am I reading something about that?
Right. Well, but it's if...
I don't know if that was overall budget.
But it's if they can't agree to a debt limit increase and budget that year. So if the two houses and the president can't get their ducks in a row and sign off on a new thing, it reverts to a maximum of 1% increase against the previous year.
Gets us through like 2025, I think.
Right. So at least at minimum, we won't have another one of these until the summer of 25. We won't have a debt ceiling standoff. But the one to me that drives me nuts, I sent you the clip from the Breaking Points podcast,
right.
Is the one to me that drives me nuts is that the Pentagon went up. I can't, it just doesn't make sense. I can't figure out how to make it make sense to keep pumping money into the Pentagon the way we do. It's crazy to me. It's crazy making as well. Haven't passed an audit in 5 years, and not just a couple bucks here and there, to the tune of trillions of dollars. They can't. Like, what did they say? 5 years? Over the last 5 years, they can only account for about 39% of their budget, where it actually went. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's just crazy. Like, and they get more. It just doesn't, like, I can't, like, that's the crazy making part. The fact that they did it in the first place, the fact that they can't they can't keep track of what they're doing, that's crazy. But then we give them more, especially after this whole fight about cutting budgets and trying to trim the deficit and all that kind of shit. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand it from a Republican perspective, who is supposed to be the more hawkish ones. I don't understand it from a Democrat's perspective, who are supposed to be ones that are anti-war and want to shrink the Pentagon anyway. Like, I don't understand it from anybody's perspective right now on how this makes any sense. But we keep on keeping on.
We can justify some spending, but yeah, to the amount of it, no.
Right. Well, I mean, like you're saying, it's like previous times we talked about, your thing, it's like, I can get behind the idea, and I agreed with you, so I can get behind the idea there's a certain amount of money that they're spending on stuff that maybe we don't need to know about it.
Well, I think...
I'm not a big fan of that premise, but I can get on board.
Right. There's also been a lot of reports in recent years about, with many things, just general infrastructure within the U.S. You also have infrastructure within the military as far as, or housing on bases that are literally decades old, lead paint, mold, that have just never been fixed. So
right.
To that extent, I'm sure they've got a large backlog of repairs that need to get done. I mean, that's VA's been constantly under. Well,
I don't know if
probably
it's the same
underfunded.
budget. I don't know if it's the same budget. I guess it's inside the Pentagon, but it's a different division inside the Pentagon. I don't know how that works.
I would think it'd be part of the Department of Defense.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know if I don't know if Veteran Affairs comes out into more of a regular social services department then. But you're probably right. It probably is a defense. You're right. I apologize. I shouldn't have gone on that tangent.
I'm assuming. I don't know. I would think they would have their own budget. Like, hey, you're not taking out of Medicare like you're a veteran. That comes out of Veteran Affairs.
Right. I agree with you. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. I derailed that because it may not be in. It may be its own subset inside the Pentagon's budget, but it ought to be inside the Pentagon's budget. That's the only thing that you could argue to me that on why the Pentagon needs more money. But they don't do that well either.
Right.
And it's like, and we got going back and forth about weapons and stuff because, again, in the Breaking Points piece, to talk about how, what was it, back in the 90s? One of these shoulder fire Stingers or whatever. Anti-tank, anti-aircraft.
Yeah.
Like rocket launcher rounds, just a round, not the actual platform or anything, just the round. It was like $2,500 a round back in the 90s. Something like that.
Like $20,000, I think.
Now they are.
I thought now they were at like $200,000.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Either way, well, it's
Yeah, it was like I think they said it was like a 7-fold increase.
right. And so to me, like I thought it was like 25 to like 15,000 over a 10 or 20 year time span.
Right.
Either way, just the idea that it was $2,500 around is crazy to me. You know, and again, I don't think a soldier should be thinking about that or is likely to be thinking about that, but like, I don't know.
Guarantee his commander is.
Yeah. I mean, they talk about there's a battleship they built a couple years ago. It's like an actual like battleship, cannons on the battleship, whole thing. Apparently one of the cannons on it, it's $1 million round.
Damn.
And they built it and designed it, or they designed it knowing that. They built it knowing that. And it's like, okay, what does $1 million round get you? Like realistically, like you talk about housing falling apart, how many $1 million rounds would it take to build some new barracks at Camp Lejeune or whatever? Maybe get the septic system working correctly at Camp Lejeune while you're at it. How many $1 million rounds would that take? You know, and it's like, okay, then, all right, fine. It's $1 million round. What does $1 million round do? Like what? Like you shoot it into a crowd of people and it kills the bad guys but not the good guys?
Obliterate.
I would hope so. Like I mean, for $1 million a round, it better do something spectacular.
Right.
And I don't think it does. I think it's just a big.
We're using this?
No, they like apparently this battleship's out in the ocean and they don't have any because they won't buy them any because they don't have like they can't afford to buy rounds for it. So it's out there floating around using all its other guns, just not that gun.
Can't remember. There was some big flop of like a new jet they were trying to make, and they spent billions of dollars on R&D, and just never came to fruition.
Billions and
And I'm like, yeah, I guess they were just going to scrap that.
I mean, at some point you got to take that risk. Like that one, I can actually get behind. Like I can get behind the premise of that. It's like we're trying something that's out of the box that we're going to put this.
See, to an extent, but I don't know how long they kept trying before they were like.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree with
fine.
you on that one too. But I'm just saying, like,
Just give it another 5 years of R&D.
You know, but like at some point you got to just be like, okay,
Right.
we got to develop something
Right. We tried.
that when we put that thing out on the battlefield, nobody knows what to do with it because nobody's seen anything like it before. Yeah, it's technically a plane, but it does all sorts of things that planes don't do. It's going to blow your mind.
I'm trying to remember. There was some like I think it was a comedy about
The Men Who Stare at Goats?
no. They were trying to like come up with this tank, and they had all these people that were giving all these like ideas. Like, well, we want it to be able to carry like at least 15 people, and we want it to have this gun that's capable of this, but it's got to have this and thick armor. And it was just kind of like this monstrosity of a thing when you added all their ideas together. That this tank would have been
Right, but it also needs to do 65 miles an hour on flat ground.
Right, yeah.
At 50 tons.
right.
Yeah. I mean,
You're
and
like,
again, like,
okay, yeah, we can build one of those. It's going to cost $1 billion.
it's not like again at some point, like I get the idea of going down the rabbit hole on some of these things that are ridiculously expensive, and odds are a waste of time.
Yeah.
Because the one that does changes, like, can have a huge strategic change in our ability to function on the world map or whatever you want to call it. But again, it doesn't like that. To me, that doesn't excuse the other shortcomings. You know, okay, fine. You dumped almost $1 trillion into a project that failed. You're still missing $12 trillion or some shit like that. Where'd the other 11 go? Tell me you didn't put $12 trillion projects together, and all of them failed.
Yeah.
Or tell me you did, and then we at least understand it, and you're fired because you're not allowed to put projects together anymore because you pick losers. Let's get somebody else in here that can pick better projects to work on.
Well, John Stewart sat down with, it's like the former or like current person that's supposed to be kind of doing the audit or kind of head over, I guess, budgeting for the Pentagon or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it was only like I don't know if it wasn't, I doubt it was the full interview, but at least like 5 or 10 minutes of him talking to her, kind of like grilling her over it.
And do you have any answers that were worth remembering?
Nothing.
Just
great.
a bunch of dodge deflections and.
I think there was a bit of that. I think she gave a couple good answers, but still doesn't really, I guess, fully explain that lack of.
Well, I mean, I get one of the things that we chatted about there. It's like this is not as similar to many other industries we have in this nation right now are not well competitive. There's not a lot of players in it, and with the amount of money floating around, there should be more players in it. Like an easy metaphor, I guess, for it would be like, look at the NFT program.
There just aren't that many defense contractors. Again,
But dude, if all right,
It's not a simple industry just to jump into.
you're right.
Like,
It's not.
This may be
but-
made. Like I should just start. A
Okay,
defense
so
firm.
if you think well, I don't know, he's probably not a good one. Warren Buffett, right? Like if I went to Warren Buffett and pitched him the idea, I'd be like, hey, I've got this guy and this guy and this guy that I've been talking to. They're top engineers that do this, that, and the other. They're on board to help me develop a whatever thing that we're going to sell to the U.S. Army,
Right.
and it's going to compete with the M16 rifle or whatever it is. We have this. We have this thing. We have a good design on it. We just need help getting capital to get on. Do you think Warren Buffett would look at that and be like, no, there's not really good sales in that kind of thing? No, because there is really good sales in that kind of thing. Obviously, it's the largest piece of governmental budget by miles. Warren Buffett's
He
going
would
to
probably
say,
say there's not market viability for it.
Warren Buffett's going to say, there's market viability for it. You're just not going to survive.
There's a vacuum in the market. There's
Obviously, there has to be. That's the only way it makes sense. With this, like
a lack of competition does not mean there is a vacuum and a need for more.
yes, it does. When there's with the pricing and the contracts that are in place the way they are, yes, it does. There's a need for more, because the argument that a Boeing or whomever is making for why they charge what they charge for their products is that we're the only one that can make it for you. We're the only one that you can buy it from. Because if that's not the truth, then Boeing can't charge what they're charging for the thing.
They're one of
because
the
somebody
very-
else makes a comparable.
They're one
that's
of the
better.
very few.
But if there was more than a few that are in the game, somebody's going to figure out how to do it better for the same price or comparable for cheaper.
Why don't we have more car manufacturers in the U.S.?
There's just the cost of manufacturing.
Oh, okay. Huh. That doesn't work in the defense industry?
Well, I'm pretty sure within the rules of defense industry stuff, it has to be domestically produced. It's not manufacturally viable to get in the car game because, at least not domestically, you're going to go and have it produced somewhere else. Tesla was the last, for a little while, Tesla was the last 100% American-made car for a little bit, and now they're all Chinese and Mexican.
Yeah, parts.
Whole cars, but not many. Actually, that's I apologize. Most of the Chinese cars that are made in China are getting sold to China in China. But and so if the rule is it has to be produced domestically, then no, then there's not enough competition in the game, because then you can't charge that much. There's no way. Somebody can come along.
There's no way we're making everything that's in, this Stinger missile or whatever. I guarantee you some of those semiconductors, computer chips are coming outside of. So I don't think there's 100% everything has to be made within the U.S.
Well, if whomever is making those Stinger missiles is using foreign chips, then why can't I get foreign chips to make mine?
Who says you can't?
Exactly. So that's not an exclusionary factor. The point is that if I pick on Boeing because it's an example I know by name, right. Lockheed, whatever. That's the right. only competitor really. I don't believe. I guess that this is a better way to say it. I don't believe that a fair market value for a shoulder-fired rocket is even $2,500 a round. Even today, 20 years later. I don't believe that's fair market value. I think fair market value is less than that. I don't think it costs thousands of dollars to produce, therefore necessitating tens of thousands of dollars in sale price. I don't think it costs that to do it, even with American manufacturing inflated pricing. I just don't think that's real. And so I think it's a low competition industry. It's nepotism and all the other buddy lobbyists and campaign finance contributions that gets the contract.
Let's try to do a generic Google search.
On what?
Like why so few defense contractors?
Did you spell it like that? Is that how you worded it exactly?
Yeah. AI knows how to read this shit now.
You make fun of me for asking questions in full sentences. I didn't realize it was because you do bad full sentences.
Yeah.
Not just keywords. I don't know. I guess I would argue that maybe on the tip-top end, and maybe the Rockets is a bad example. But, Max has made the argument, whatever the rifle he had when he was in the Marines, when he turns it back into the whatever officer at the end of whatever, it costs X number of dollars for the Marines to buy that rifle. But if he goes and buys it at the store down the street, he's only paying half. Like that whole story. You've heard that story before, right?
Turn it back in. Sorry.
Again, like an M1 rifle or whatever,
Right.
Just a standard issue rifle or whatever. When the Army buys 10,000 of them at bulk, like they're supposed to get discounts,
Right.
They're paying $1,000 a rifle, but me and you could go to the gun store right now and get it for $700, $600.
Yep.
How does that make sense? And that's something that I do believe that there is enough manufacturing capacity in this nation to make it a competitive market. Then how are they getting contracts for overvalue?
I think there's only one company that makes that specific M1 Garand.
Okay, even if there is, if I can go and buy the same exact rifle as a civilian for less than the military is buying for it, why is the military overpaying? Why aren't they just sending guys down to the gun store in town to buy them if they're paying more than that to get them? Like, again, with the bulk deals and stuff like that.
That just doesn't how it works. That's not how it works.
Oh, okay. I mean, I understand that's not how it works, nor necessarily should that be how it works, but it doesn't make sense either.
I don't know if it's the company that makes it just basically saying, "Oh, you need 1 million of them." Fuck. Essentially, to fulfill that order, they would have to almost like stop domestic and commercial for a good little bit while they're trying to fulfill that large order. Unless they're just doing 1 every 5, finally makes it over to commercial, but 4 out of every 5 is going into fulfilling this order.
I mean, usually it gets cheaper that way, even if it does.
I understand it usually gets cheaper in bulk, but at the same time, it may put a large hardship upon them. They're like, all right, for the next year,
but still,
we're not going to be able to make any.
But
to put on the commercial market.
But the civilian market should be at least as much. Like, why would you price it cheaper to the civilian market?
I don't know.
Because that's what it actually costs. That's actually about what it's worth in value. It's that you set up a contract with a guy that's willing to overpay it because you put money in his campaign finances.
Don't know. Maybe it comes down to that's one of the few rifles that are approved by the Army. So then manufacturer gets to say like, well,
this is the one you got to buy, so I'm going to overcharge you for it.
It's possible. It's capitalism, baby. You want something?
Fuck yeah. And if you're dumb enough to sign the fucking contract as the state, you're the asshole, not the fucking gun manufacturer. That's a politician's issue. That is not the manufacturer's issue. So that's not capitalism at all.
No, it's capitalism.
No, it's not.
The DoD could change what their standard issue rifle would be and go with another.
They absolutely could. And if they're gonna,
but that's not a politician's choice, is it?
Which gun they want to use?
Correct.
Who staffs the DoD? Where do those people come from? They just appear?
They rise through the ranks of the military generally.
And they're appointed by the president and they're approved by Congress? You don't get to be a department head in any...
And the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but who does he pick that? Who does he pick that from?
What is the title?
Our Joint Chiefs of Staffs are generally like 4-star generals and admirals.
Sure. What is the title?
So where did they come from? Did they get picked by a politician, or did they rise the ranks in the military
and then got picked by a politician? Yes, both.
Okay,
both are true. Because there are multiple 4- and 5-star generals or whatever it is that are
I highly
capable.
doubt that the Joint Chiefs of Staff is making the decision of changing that. That comes at a high level, but that's not Joint Chiefs.
Okay.
They're not dealing with standard issue weapons.
What's that other title we call the president all the time?
Commander-in-Chief.
Oh, what does that title mean?
He's head of the armed forces.
Okay, so usually, like, when Amazon does something stupid...
So you want to advocate for the president jumping in and making these decisions?
It's his fucking job. It's not to make the decision per se, but to put the right people in place to make the right decision. So yes, the president of the United States is approving getting scammed by greedy businessmen.
All right.
If you want to put it on capitalism. But it's still not capitalism. It's not capitalism if...
That's supply and demand.
It's not supply and demand.
How is it not?
Because
the government has demand for the money.
Sure.
One company has that supply. If we want to stick to this one rifle that supposedly only one company makes.
But the only reason one company has the supply is because the customer picked that company. It's not that it's the only company that makes the thing or a comparable thing. There are comparable options in the market. It's the fact that that customer picked the thing, which is narrowing the supply. And by doing so, you should be getting a discount by giving that bulk order to the manufacturer, not an inflated price. Because, well, you have to buy it. I'm going to run the charges up. Because you're right. That is a capitalist move. You don't have a choice. You have to buy my thing. I'm going to make it more expensive. Same thing textbooks
I thought you said it
do.
wasn't capitalism.
No,
which one is it?
It is a capitalist move to do. Yes, as a capitalist, I would agree with the premise of going after that framework when it's put that way. But that is not capitalism at work when the buyer is falsely creating the demand. That's not capitalism. That's market interventionism. If you want to look at it, if you want to use like big textbook terms,
falsely creating that command
because they're picking one thing. Period. They're picking a thing, and they're saying, this is the only one we're going to buy. This is the only one you're allowed to buy. If you're going to work with us, if you're going to be whatever, this is the only one we're going to buy. But they're picking that thing not based on price, not based on quality, not based on anything, whatever the reason they're picking it, and then they're charging prices up. You say, okay, we're going to pick that thing, but you don't get to raise prices on us. We're not going to keep doing that thing. Okay, yes, you have a really good gun. We want to buy your gun. It's great. And you say, cool, and then you double the price? Never mind, I'm not buying your gun anymore. Go fuck yourself. That would be my response as a human being. If I sign a contract with you, I'm going to include the price. If I say, okay, I want 10 million of these. Can you produce these for me over the next 5 years? You say, yeah, sure. How much are you going to charge me for them? You're going to give me that price before I sign that contract. If I sign that contract before you price it, and then you just show up with half the order and say, oh, I know we kind of talked about it this way, but I put it at 150% of what we kind of talked about because we never put it on paper. Here's your shit. Well, that's not in the fucking contract. Fuck you. Go sell your guns somewhere else. They're not mine. It's bullshit. That's not capitalism.
Okay.
Because it's not a normal customer. It's not normal demand. It's false. It's falsely inflated demand.
It's normal demand. We've stuck to a select number of weapons that our military uses, so they have a uniformity in knowing how to use a certain weapon. It's not everyone having to learn 8 different weapons and know how to use those just in case we may switch.
And I know there's lots of patents and copyrights and stuff like that on different weapons, but there's a lot of interchangeable stuff that weapons can use, whether it's the same manufacturer or not. Is that not something that maybe somebody in the Pentagon would know how to function within? Now, it's not the exact same rifle, but it uses the same rounds as our other rifle.
So now we're buying rifles to then send to another company that can retrofit them for a cheaper price?
What? Who's retrofitting anything?
I don't know. Where are you getting these parts that can be interchanged? What are you talking about?
I mean, there's aftermarket companies that make parts for guns that already exist.
Okay, so we're buying guns and then buying separate parts from a separate company and then paying whom to then retrofit the weapons?
No. Who said anything about fucking retrofitting? Why do you keep saying retrofit?
What parts are you talking about replacing? And
okay,
why?
I have a Remington 270.
All right.
Right?
Okay.
I have a Remington 270. Do you have a 270?
No.
Max has a 270.
Okay, good.
I'm pretty sure his is a Winchester.
Cool.
Now, more or less all our parts and pieces are interchangeable. It's almost identically the same gun. It's not 100% the same gun. Obviously, Winchester makes one, Remington makes the other one. Now, Max and I's rifle in this particular conversation would not be good Army weapons. Don't get me wrong. It's not something you would want to use in a combat setting with single-fire bolt-action rifle. It's a pain in the ass. But it's 2 manufacturers that are building the same fucking gun.
Okay.
There's lots of different manufacturers that build the same gun. Okay. So how about if you're the Department of Defense, you pick a gun that multiple companies make, and you buy it from all 3 companies, whichever one sells you the cheapest version of the gun.
Did they all fire the same?
Fire the same?
Yes. As in...
every soldier...
If you took each one of those to the range...
Is every soldier the same height? Is every soldier bench the same amount?
No.
Okay. So, what? We're going to try to make one particular, they all wear the same size shirt, but somehow we go out to Gildan or whoever, and they build our camo shirts in all the different sizes we want.
What the fuck are you talking about?
There's nothing the same about anything. Why does it need to be 110% the same? It's functionally the same.
Go to a fucking shooting range at a military base and look at how many different guns they're using. I'll guarantee you they're not using different weapons.
Okay.
Because if you're going to teach one person,
Okay.
you want that next class to be able to shoot that same
You're right.
weapon the same way.
You're right. Then we should all. Then we should just overpay for everything because we're too fucking.
I'm not
lazy.
saying we should fucking overpay for it. I'm saying the military is restrained to having a certain weapon so they can train across the board on how to use a certain set of weapons. You don't get into a plethora of learning different weapons till you get into like special forces where you can kind of pick your own shit that you want that you want to work best with.
Sorry to interrupt. Max finally got his fucking Bronco.
Nice.
Oh man, I wish he was here. For
Did
the
you
Star
finally
Trek.
tell him it was coming, or he actually had it?
No, he went and picked it up. He was supposed to. He was running errands, and then he got the call and just quit doing what he was doing and went and got his Bronco.
I probably would have done
And
the
then
same.
he's bouncing out of town tomorrow, so it's going to sit in his driveway for a week and a half as soon as he gets it.
I thought he was still pawning and reselling it.
I would, but I don't. I wouldn't have bought it in the first place. So it
Yeah, it
doesn't-
depends on how much I wanted it to begin with.
Yeah.
Be like, at this point, like, no, that's what I wanted.
I follow what you're saying, but at the end of the day, if Max and I are on the line together and the same guy is teaching us how to use that gun, it's not going to make a difference in how we use those guns. Those guns are nearly identical. They're close enough to identical that it's not going to functionally matter.
I agree they're close.
On a day-to-day basis and out in the field basis.
But if you're going to train people month after month, year after year,
Mm-hmm.
you want people to learn on that one and know how to use that one in and out.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. You're right. But only
That's where the complexity of doing some of these contracts.
I don't think it is.
Like, I
it's
don't
just
think we've
fucking
up-
lazy bullshit. Then
I don't
design
think
your
we've-
own. Then design your own as the Department of Defense, and then sell contracts to manufacture the weapon that you designed. And then you can have Remington and Winchester and them all make it because they're going to make it exactly the same. It's the same exact gun. It's the one that we designed and told you to make.
I don't know the last time we updated our standard issue weapons.
That's what I'm saying though. Is you could do it that way. Then make a deal with Remington and say, listen, you've designed a great weapon here. We want it. I'll tell you what. We're gonna get it to you, and we're gonna pay you $1 for every unit. We're gonna pay you $1 for every unit we buy, whether it's one that you guys make or anybody else makes. But we're going to use your design, and we're going to send it to Winchester. We're going to send it to Smith & Wesson, and they're going to create the gun too. And everyone that they roll off their line, we're going to give you $1 for. So you can make them, and we'll buy them.
Would that work in a general commercial kind of setting?
Yeah,
It would.
sure.
Yeah, I guess, kind of.
You know, somebody comes like our house juice Walker, right? Like, it's really good juice. I like it a lot. It's my personal favorite. You know, somebody came to me and said, we really want that in their store, but we don't want your label. We're going to put it under our label. It's like, okay. They'll say, how about you sell me the recipe? And then you don't have to worry about it. But for every single bottle I produce and sell in my store, even though you don't have anything to do with it, but it's your recipe, I'll kick you $1 out. It's a deal I'd make. I'd look into it. I might not make that deal. I'd have to look into what it would cost us to manufacture in bulk and sell it to them and do that kind of back and forth and all that kind of shit. But, you know, if they're like, yeah, you know, we'll give you $1 a bottle. You don't have to do anything. Okay. Or you can make some and then make a couple extra bucks, but whatever. It's an option.
I don't know.
I mean, like, who made the B-52 bomber?
I don't know.
Like, who designed it?
Don't know.
I mean, like, Ford made them physically. Like, they built them. But Ford didn't design it or anything like that. Now, people that worked at Ford, engineers, as well as the factory workers and stuff like that, they got paid to produce the thing, but they didn't design it. They had nothing to do with it other than, hey, we're going to kill Hitler. We need some help. Kick these bitches out.
I don't know. They call it the Super Fortress, but
Yeah, I don't know if it was a Boeing or Lockheed or whomever.
I'm not sure if either one was around at that point.
I don't know. You know, I'm just making it like I don't know either. But you get the point I'm getting at, though, is that essentially what was happening was the U.S. government was contracting a manufacturer to make a thing for them,
Yeah.
not to make a thing that they already make, but make a thing that they're capable of making with the equipment they have.
Yeah, it's a lot different situation. We
Not-
literally told them to shut down car manufacturing. We're like, hey, you have a factory.
Yeah.
You're now going to make this. I don't think there was any real asking of Ford. It was, this is what you are now doing. You're doing this for the war effort.
Yeah, but you could, I mean, just to do it without putting it in. You don't have to do it with the War Powers Act. You could just do it in the general premise of saying, "Hey, this is the rifle we're using. Anybody who wants to make the rifle for us and can sell it to us at a reasonable price."
I'm assuming there's a reason that it's not getting done.
Probably, yeah. The same reason why we're overpaying for rifles in the first place. I don't think it's not about market. It's not about anything other than a couple of people's real money. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about any of that kind of stuff. But anyway, Supreme Court vetoes efforts to limit anti-fraud law. I didn't get to read the article. Tell me more about it.
I just sent you that in reference and talking about this because we were talking about having to look at budgets and whatnot. This had to do with pharmacies. I guess there was like 2 pharmacies that were overcharging Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay.
So then they trying to remember if there was. I think they basically tried to say that it was pretty much market value, and it came down to some kind of like wording of, I guess, not really like the contracts, but the law that was in place. I can't remember exactly. It's called the False Claims Act. That I guess and it gets down to more into kind of like legalese of knowingly or maliciously, or that's when it kind of broke down into that. But it sounds like the Supreme Court kind of sided with it and not limiting that law. Because apparently this was a law that was passed around the Civil War to prevent companies from taking advantage of any kind of government contract.
Okay.
So I sent this in the same line of logic.
Right.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. We go back and forth
Maybe
on a lot
if
of
you-
different things.
Sorry, maybe if you looked at something I'd sent you, you might have caught the reference instead of being like, oh, here's something you sent me, please talk about it.
You're right. I don't read everything you send me.
I don't know. How long did it take me to listen to that Breaking Point thing you sent me?
7 minutes.
Okay, cool.
All right. Well, I don't want to talk about banning Bibles then.
No, I didn't want to
read it, so
I didn't send it. Sorry, I'll preface articles that I send you in something like, I'm not sending this to you to talk about. I'm just sending it to you to see this.
Ah.
That was just something I was waiting to happen. I knew it was going to happen eventually.
I agree with you, though. Utah being the first to do it does seem a little bit off brand for the Mormons.
Right.
Although Mormons are pretty cool people, apparently.
Are they?
I don't know. Apparently, they're really they
got the Tabernacle Choir.
Well, they go apparently they go and hang out at
They-
the musical, the South Park Guys musical. Like they actually bought they at least in the first year they ran it, they bought a full page ad in the playbill. It says if you're enjoying the show and you have more questions about the church,
Yeah, might as well.
yeah. But apparently they would hang out outside and stuff like that and talk to people as they're coming and going and stuff like that. They, instead of flipping out and be like, "You're making fun of us, assholes," they're like, "That's a good opportunity to start a conversation. Let's go." I think that's cool.
I'd rather go do that than go fucking door to door.
I'm just saying, I think that's fucking cool. Like, just that's a cool outlook in general.
I don't think they meant it as a cool outlook. I think they saw it as an avenue.
Yes, I agree. But I think their avenue to open the door to conversation is a cool outlook, and that I think that would be appropriate in a lot of different things. I think a lot more people should act like that and look at it as and look for opportunities to talk to people instead of being hateful assholes and just saying fuck off or they're making fun of me. They don't let them do that.
Guess I wouldn't want to be that guy trying to justify everything that just got mocked and pointed out of the lunacy.
Ludicrousy.
Ludicrousness.
I mean, it's of the subsets of Christianity is one of the flakier ones. Was L. Ron Hubbard? Is that who it was?
No, L. Ron Hubbard's
he's the
Scientology
science guy. Right.
This was
Adam Smith.
Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith.
Adam
And
Smith
special
is
glasses and
Adam Smith's in The Wealth of Nations, Invisible Hand.
oh
That's Adam Smith.
yeah. Yeah, the special glasses and the tablets that disappeared and
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Maroney, I think it was. Maroney could read it.
I mean, it's literally a cult from back in the day that he just kept running away and ended up in Utah, and it got established long enough that it wasn't a cult anymore. It was now a religion. Because he started in like Pennsylvania or something like that and got chased out of town.
Something like that, yeah.
and then like set up camp again in like Kansas or somewhere like that, and started kind of growing a following or whatever, and then got chased out of town again. But like it all started when he was like 13.
I don't know if they actually stopped in Missouri, but I want to say it's like Branson, Missouri. That was picked where where they believe that Jesus has already come back, and that's where he came back too.
But so yeah, I don't remember the whole thing, but I know he slowly worked his way west until he ended up in Utah, and now you have a major university and all sorts of crazy shit.
Yeah, all sorts of crazy shit. Like, hey, you can have as many wives as I want, and child brides, and
yeah,
it doesn't matter.
It's crazy shit. And apparently, there's a huge population in Mexico.
Huh.
Because Mexican law is not as strict as U.S. law, and so
Sure,
yeah, there's a story. It was like 5 years ago or something like that. There's a story. There was a caravan of Mormons that got jacked by the cartel, killed a bunch of people, left them on the side of the road, and a whole big thing. They're all U.S. citizens, so there was a little bit of like a State Department mess. They were residents in whatever the compound was in Mexico, but they were U.S. citizens that had moved there for their church.
I remember hearing about that. Yeah, it was like the whole busload that basically kind of got bus jacked and they all got killed.
Killed a bunch of people, kidnapped a handful, and then there was like the whole back and forth with the U.S. government, the Mexican government, and the cartel leadership trying to figure out the thing. That's pretty fucking crazy. City races are ramping up.
Dum.
Do I?
Oh, it's the South Park episode where they were talking about Mormonism. They're like, Joseph Smith, dum.
I didn't mean to make that reference. I didn't know it.
No, it just crossed my mind.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Never mind.
What else we got?
Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about that the Aslan Foundation here in town. Now, I'll right off the top. All right. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't know the details of it. I don't know how these nonprofits work. I don't know what's normal and not normal.
Right.
All right, I'll start there. But on the smell test, is that one of the phrases we like to use? The smell test doesn't track for me with looking into the financials. So this started, there was a story from WBIR put out this week. They're apparently working a series called Abandoned Places, and they're going and finding abandoned places or places that are previously abandoned around town that, either something's getting done with or something's not one. On that, the Compass guys did a really great article about a couple of abandoned cemeteries in Mechanicsville. The Southern Chain Cemetery and something else. Right there off of Keith Avenue, just off of Western, after all that new construction through Western. Anyway, really cool old cemetery, but it's all overgrown and stuff like that because the company who owned the cemetery went bankrupt, and it's one of those, like, what do you do with it? Like, it's certainly delinquent on its taxes, but the city doesn't want to seize the property because what do you do with it? And so it's just kind of sitting there. And there's a couple nonprofits that are interested in trying to do it and whatever, but nobody wants to give them grant money to mow a cemetery. Anyway, WR did this other story on abandoned places. It's the Eugenia Williams house in West Knoxville. It's one of those on Lions Bend there, one of those mansions. Giant-ass house. That was willed to the University of Tennessee.
Apparently, family was part of like the Coca-Cola money.
Is that one of those? Good for them. Anyway, so she's a wealthy heiress, had the house, whatever, lived there for a long time. Apparently, was really tech savvy for the day. So the house has got a bunch of stuff that was very rare to have back then, like outlets in the vanity, so you could plug in your hairdryer and stuff like that.
Ooh.
So anyway, like apparently it's a neat, eclectic, weird house in and of itself, on top of it being a big ass fucking mansion there in Lions View that nobody can afford. And so eventually the Aslan Foundation bought it for $4 million from the university. Actually, I think the university gave it to the city. I missed that part. I feel like the city had gotten possession at some point.
They willed it to UT, and then I think UT sold it.
UT sold it to Aslan. Okay.
I want to say at some point UT was going to try to, I don't know if it was fixed up at that time. I don't know how long it's been.
They should have just fixed it up, and that's part of the contract for the football coach.
I think it was at one point kind of like the house for the president or the chancellor.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it probably started trying to fall into, or not trying to fall, but maybe started falling into disrepair.
Or kind of this weird spot. It's like, well, I don't want to live there, so I'm going to buy my own house.
I remember that, yeah.
And you guys do whatever you want with it. And then it's just like, well, nobody's living there. We leave it alone. Forget about Anyway, so fell into despair. It's abandoned place, overgrown, looks like junk, falling apart. Aslan Foundation buys it for $4 million. Now, I meant to look on Zillow to see how much.
I was about to say, I wonder how much is that property alone.
Let's check out
worth.
See if we can find it.
So, I mean, that is riverfront.
Oh yeah,
good track.
I want to say it was 5 acres, 5+ acres
at least. Yeah.
It's
hard to tell because the damn fence kind of covers up 95%.
Well, I want to say it mentioned it in the story. Bear with me a second. I'm going to kind of poke around here and see if I can't find it. Get rid of that.
Those lovely homes. Got that small, tiny house for $750,000.
Yeah. Big ass one for $5.1 million.
Oh yeah,
That's not it.
I've seen them building that one.
I mean, just an empty lot that doesn't even actually have a riverfront is $364,000. It's a little tiny one, $3.2 million.
That tells you just for land alone.
No, yeah. If there's no house on it.
Oh, okay.
Like this one right here has a house. Anyway, so that's the one they tore down.
The Villa Colina.
Yeah. I'm trying to see from the pictures. Oh, what a great picture.
That's not that one. Still keep going. It's past Foxton.
Oh, it's way up. It's past the country or past Cherokee?
Pretty sure.
This one. Nope. Exciting radio, people. You're welcome.
I wonder where that pause button is.
That's way over there.
Get that metronome going.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put that metronome on. Suck it. Anyway, so
what kind of evaluation does it get?
Quick, whatever. 5 bedrooms or 5 bed, 4 bath, 11,000 square foot. I guess it's not appropriate to say the address particularly. I mean, it has it Zillowed at $4 million because that's what it last sold for very recently. But just for conversation's sake, what do we say? 5 bed, 4 bath, 11,000 square feet. It's a huge piece of property. I mean, look at that thing. It stretches around back behind all that other stuff.
Estimate $20,000 a month for rent.
It's a huge piece of property. Just up the street, 5 bed, 4 bath. Oh, sorry, 5 bed, 9 bath. You weirdos. 8,000 square feet is estimated at $5.5 million, and it has probably a third the property.
Yeah,
if that. Given its rundown and stuff like that, I get it. It's not worth as much as that other one that we were just looking at because that other one is like super well done and looks nice and stuff like that. So $4 million might be fair market for it. I think it's a little high personally, but it's in line. Or
you know how much copper they got running through that house right now?
Sure, but I mean the thing to me is like that property itself,
right?
That's
a good chunk of just riverfront alone.
Yeah, with the way developers can squeeze shit in there, that'd be 15 houses, and they'd be $1 million houses each.
They'd probably put one of those little mini subdivisions in there.
That's what I'm saying. They'd put one of those little mini subdivisions in with like 10, 15 houses, $1.5 million a piece. That's a $30 million piece of property if it's developed right. Anyway, Aslan Foundation buys it for $4 million from the University of Tennessee, as far as we could tell, and they're gonna fix it. And they're going to let people come hang out. And they're going to turn it into a park. And apparently there's some walkways. And there's a little building over here in the corner. So they're kind of going to make it a semi-public space. But the building itself is going to be only for specific events. Which is kind of cool, I guess. Like, I'm not opposed to the premise of what they're kind of pitching here. But it got me thinking and looking into shit. And so I started digging and doing math. And so we're digging into it. And so Aslan Foundation is a Knoxville area nonprofit. They deal in grants and apparently buying random houses and fixing them up. And so looking into them. So according to causeIQ.com, last year they brought in $11.63 million in revenues last year. A little less than $5 million in expenses. They own $124 million in assets. Digging a little further, that their income comes from the sale of their non-inventory assets. And so they're not a profit-rearing company. They don't sell things. They don't buy and sell things, quote unquote, with the intent. They don't buy things as inventory. They buy things as assets, is really what's happening. Is they invest in a piece of property. They invest in stocks and bonds. And then they sell those as they want to do their different project stuff. And so when they sell it, it's a non-inventory asset because it's not, it's not that they're buying and selling specialty cars. They're not buying and selling specialty houses. They're just buying things that are worth shit. And as they want to buy more shit, they sell some of the shit they already own. It's mostly in stocks and bonds. And so what stuck out to me, and again, back to the preface, I don't know if this is normal or not. I don't know if this is average. But the Aslan Foundation last year put out 46 grants. What did I say totaling?
Did you get this from their site?
This is from Causes IQ. Their site doesn't say any of their financials.
I thought they had to have it somewhere because that's where I found stuff on the Friends of the Smokies. Thought it had to be semi-publicly available, but could be wrong. Maybe they can choose not to.
Yeah, somewhere in there as I was digging around, they did like $1.5 million in grants.
Yeah,
and so
in a calendar year or whatever.
Right. And so what stuck out to me is you're bringing in you're choosing to bring in $11 million in revenue. You're choosing to because your revenue is from selling shit that you bought previously, whether it's stocks, bonds, other properties. So you chose to make $11 million and only grant 1.5. I thought that was kind of weird. I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is normal or not. I just thought that was kind of odd and interesting. According to their financials on this Causes IQ, their personnel at the Aslan Foundation, the executive director makes $164,000. The past former executive director makes $157,000. I thought that was interesting. You can retire from the job and still make about the same salary. I need to be a director of one of these foundations is really what it was. Do my 4 or 8 years, whatever is required of me, and then keep getting a check. But again, I mean, they figured out how to spend $5 million of their 11.6 that they sold. I just feel like where's that other $6 million? What are they doing with that? Because it doesn't show them reinvesting it. It doesn't show it going anywhere else. It just shows. Yeah, I want to say it was like $700,000 in non-board payroll. So people that work for them, whether it's accountants or clerical people of some sort, people that are managing the $24 million or $124 million in assets, collectively make $700,000 a year. But apparently, people that used to work there, used to be on the board, are get a check too. I don't know. Like it got my radar whizzing. Like it doesn't pass the sniff test to me. This doesn't make sense to me. It's a nonprofit, 501c7 or something like that. I can't remember. I saw it when I was digging around. And so like this is a non-taxable business. And it's like, I don't understand why this isn't a taxable business. Like that confuses me. Like I don't understand like what they're doing that makes it special. I mean, they bought a $4 million house and they're turning it into a park. I guess that's a good excuse to not have to pay taxes. But I can't make sense of this. I need to find somebody that knows what the fuck these things are so I can talk to them about it. Because this just seems weird to me that you could make $11 million a year as a business and not have to get taxed about any of it.
Well, Randy had some stuff on that other grant writing thing that he wasn't a fan of.
Yeah. I don't understand it. Like, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I think the idea of a nonprofit is silly.
I never said that.
I was going to say I'm with you on the churches should pay taxes, but I just think we should just not have nonprofits, and then we don't have to pick and choose who gets status and not, and we don't have to have the weird debates over, well, do atheist groups get to have it be considered a nonprofit because they're a religious organization? Well, they're an anti-religious religion, so does that count as a religious organization?
You could call that a quote unquote religious view, a lack of religion.
I'm just saying, but since it's not a religion in and of itself, it's anti-religion by definition. It can't be. You can't classify it as a religion and get that 501(c) status.
No,
I would say, like, I don't like. To me, I feel like it's a weird. I think the idea of nonprofits is just kind of dumb. Like, I don't understand why it exists.
Remember the fact of places, kind of like United Way, that their main goal is to bring money in to then
Turn around and give it to somebody else.
Right.
Who's also a nonprofit. Which, for the most part, United Way is giving grants to nonprofits.
I don't even know what United Way does.
Right? United Way is an umbrella nonprofit. Is really what they are. United Way,
it's like a national nonprofit.
Right. And so United Way is a fundraising organization. And so they raise funds and then they give it to grants as they give it out as grants to, again, generally nonprofits,
smaller
as they choose.
Nonprofits, yeah.
Right. And so it's just kind of cool as a person who wants to give back to the community but doesn't know where to put it. You give it to United Way and they're going to put it in organizations in the community that United Way does good work. But
to a certain level, there's a lot of like smaller companies that want to do good but literally don't have the money. All these kind of organizations that help out the homeless, they're essentially just kind of relying upon donations that are coming into them or grants that kind of come their way. There's no way to literally, feed homeless people without having a
income's
cost.
income. Like it should just income's income. Why does it need to be like you? Like, I don't think like a company like CareCuts, which is a very small nonprofit, like a company like CareCuts, they shouldn't have to pay taxes on supplies they get to do their work. I agree with that. They shouldn't have to pay sales tax on those kind of things. Similar to I, as a for-profit business, don't have to pay sales tax on things that I bring in to go and resell. I think that's appropriate. I think you should be able to file as a business. But, again, the reason it pops out at me is like one of the things for us in our LLC is, well, if we sold $11 million in what do they call it? Non-inventory assets, or in actual inventory assets. If we sold $11 million on that, even if it's sitting in our business bank account, I, as the owner, get taxed on that. I think that why wouldn't a Aslan Foundation get taxed on their income for a year if they're not using it? It's the same thing that happens to me. Like, that's the kind of stuff that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I think an Aslan Foundation, if they're going to go and hire contractors to fix up this house that they're doing this project for, they should be able to treat those as business expenses and not pay taxes on the income equivalent to how much they've spent on business expenses. I agree with that.
That's not income, that's cost. They're paying contractors to do that work. So what income are they getting off paying contractors?
But if you as an individual have a contractor come out and fix your house,
right,
you don't get to deduct that from your income taxes.
No.
A business does.
Did they help the nonprofit?
No. A business gets to deduct an expense of doing the business, i.e. a contractor coming out and fixing something, from their gross income on the year. So that comes out of your taxable income as a business.
All right.
Which I agree that Aslan's Foundation should be able to do that, because then that will encourage them to do more things. But if they're going to have $6 million that they made in profit this year that doesn't get taxed, that seems kind of ridiculous.
You have at CareCuts, maybe they can enlighten you on some of the inner workings of nonprofits and how the...
That is a good point. I'll see if I can read, because it's not Martha, but the guy that did the show with me and her,
right?
Who was her finance guy. He's the guy that had handled all the books. I get how it works, more or less. I just don't, to me, I don't think nonprofits exist. I think it's a silly idea.
I disagree.
Okay. Why? Because you assume nonprofits are, like, why couldn't I do what does it matter if I'm doing a business? If I'm doing a business for community good, why should I get a tax? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Because
the employees don't get tax exempt. They have to pay income tax as employees, whether you work for a for-profit or a nonprofit. The only people that it changes is ownership.
they pay taxes on their salary.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like anyone else. Should they?
Yes, they should. They should, but then the business should also pay taxes like every other business does. Is my point. Why I don't understand why there's an exemption there. Because
it's designed to operate as a business, but not for their own profit.
Not for the profit of the business.
Correct.
So they can bring in as much money as they want and spend as little as they want, and all that extra money just floats in the sky.
No.
What does that extra money do?
It's supposed to be going towards whatever their designated business model is.
Right, but then when it doesn't, and they have $6 million in assets that they sold off and sits there.
You're looking at one calendar year.
Uh-huh.
Did you look at previous years? I don't know what their financials are.
Again, but
I don't blame a nonprofit like that going through the turmoil of 2021, which I think this is what this was, of trying to hey, we should hold on to some money just in case.
I mean, I think
maybe they were trying to be fiscally responsible. I don't know.
I think it sounds odd that you would sell that much because you're choosing to make that money in the way that they're formatted. You don't have to make that much money. You could sell. You could have sold $6 million worth of shit and had $5 million in expenses.
They're sitting out to it. I mean, a lot of people gave Bill Gates shit for years. He was like, I'm going to donate money, but he waited till he got more and more money to where he was finally like, I can do a shit ton of work with all this money. But as he was amassing money and getting bigger and bigger, it was like, you're not doing anything. Now he is literally the world's #1 philanthropist.
Apparently, top 5 in the world of farm owners, or something like that. He bought a bunch of farmland. He owns more. I think he, as an individual, owns the most acreage in the world.
Damn.
Something crazy like that, or at least in the U.S.
I'm not against it. Other foreign countries have literally been coming and buying farmland.
I don't like that either.
And random countries.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I think that's an ism.
So I'd rather Bill Gates own it than Xi Jinping.
Right, the CCP and stuff like that. That would be problematic. I don't know. Please, somebody email me and educate me on how nonprofits work and why they need to exist the way they do. Because I don't know. I don't understand why. I don't know. I don't get it because it's not a ton in taxes difference. It would just simplify the tax code for everybody if there was just kind of a blanket, simple way to do it.
I mean, you like to say, it's just businesses taking advantage of the tax law as it is, and what's them putting their money in offshore accounts? Like they're just playing within the system. There's nothing wrong with that, right? They're just playing by the rules.
I mean,
it may look wrong, but I mean,
my whole pitch to fit is me saying I think the rules suck. So, sure, people that play within the rules and scam it, even though it's within the rules, are inappropriate. Fine, if that's what you're trying to get me to say. But that's literally what I was just saying. That was what my whole thing is. The rules are dumb. Why do we set the rules up this way?
I just think it's funny you're just picking on nonprofits.
Then
you're just like, look at all this money they're making, and they're not paying taxes on all this. It's bullshit.
I mean, if any corporation was making that kind of money and not paying taxes, people would lose their shit.
No, they don't. There's not companies out there doing that?
There certainly is. And I don't think that's okay either. What's the difference? Is they filed as a nonprofit, and so it looks like they're doing good for their community.
Yes, if you want to take the gross thing that they are doing it just to make money and not help the community.
I mean,
I would like to assume that.
I mean, I would argue that any business
85 to 90% do not operate maliciously.
And I would say that 80 to 90% of for-profit businesses don't operate maliciously either. And I would say that if you want to argue about community good, there's plenty of for-profit businesses that do great for their communities. Axle Logistics has done a huge amount of benefit for the totality of Old North Knoxville.
Oh,
and they're a for-profit company.
What have they done?
Well, the fact that where they put their offices, and they did get some tax shit with their expansion that they're doing right now, but that's a separate thing.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I mean, that's their original had nothing to do with this. The original reason they went there, they went and bought some old warehouse space, fixed it up, made it their office, and they put 1,000 employees in this office. It's raised home values in the neighborhood. It's brought in businesses to accommodate their staff. It's done a huge net positive for the community and where they place themselves. But they're for profit and pay taxes.
Would the people surrounding that community agree with you?
I would say so, yeah. Maybe not totality. I mean, you can't say. I mean, there's certainly somebody that hates them. I'm sure.
And all of a sudden they can't afford their property tax because their property tax just went up.
I mean, again, I'm sure there's some people that are upset about it. I'm sure it's not universal. But I mean, the city in and of itself, and why they then granted some tax incentives for them to do the expansion, really likes them down there because it's doing good for the city. It's raising those property values so that
I'm sure the city more. Yeah, I'm sure the city agreed to do that after the fact. Like, oh, you're moving there? Okay, yeah, we'll give you some tax breaks.
No,
I'm sure it was.
I don't know. I don't know. To be fair, I don't know the 100% the background of the whole thing, but I know that they bought the property next door, and they've got a pilot deal with the city so that they don't have to pay increased property tax for like 20 years.
Oh, it's good for them. It sucks for the people around it, though.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it sucks for the people that get displaced, yes. But for the most part, the people that own their homes down there, it's great for them. It's going to give them, I mean, it's revitalizing the Happy Holler neighborhood. It's revitalizing parts of Old Broadway up there that has been falling apart and getting gross for
Axle
years.
Logistics is the sole contributor to
No,
revitalization.
the city of Knoxville's efforts to put things in there, the moving of the criminal justice or community, whatever they fucking call that thing to make it sound nice, moving the police department up there is part of it.
On Broadway.
Yeah. That's part of the whole thing that's
St. Mary's?
spurring, the old St. Mary's. There's more than just Axle. You're right. It's not just Axle, but it's certainly part of it.
But you're giving credit to Axle.
Let me rewind the tape and see if I said only because Axle went down there.
You did say only.
There's all these things. I did.
This was your example that you're pointing towards.
And yes, and I would say that I would think it would be hard to argue against it. Yes, there are some people that are displaced by it and don't like it. The homeless community down there is not a big fan because it's pushing them around. Because that's the place they used to hang out, and now that there's more people,
I can't really picture where that is.
It's right there where the new Yeehaw is, and it's where Broadway and Central split, where they cross. If you're going up Broadway from downtown, and when Central comes across it, and you take that left,
onto Central,
just like a block on the left is where the Axle office is now, and they're expanding to the lot next door. That's like half a mile from our new place, and stuff like that. And so, yes, I think that to go back to the point of why I brought it up is that as a for-profit business, they have done a net positive for the community. Now, again, if we're going to use your comparison, do I think there are people that are upset about Aslan buying that house down there on Lionsview? Sure, I'm sure there's some people that don't like it.
For what reason could you think of?
I don't know, the hoity-toity population that frequents Cherokee Country Club now having regular Joes just hanging out on their street.
Seriously?
Sure.
Okay.
You got a $5 million mansion right next door, and you just got a bunch of people randomly picnicking in the yard right outside your bathroom window? If you're that guy, I'm sure that guy's pissy about it.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Okay. I don't know. I'm just making shit up, I guess. I don't know. I would think... I don't know.
They're going to be mad that people are coming onto the property. You've got, what, maybe two neighbors on either side?
Yeah.
You think they're really going to be mad to look out and see people like picnicking in grass area? That's your.
I would say it's a possibility.
That's your stick in the mud to them.
I mean, okay, so if you own that $5 million house, do you think that's a net positive for your property value or negative?
I would say that will increase your property value.
That's going to increase your property value because somebody that wants to buy a $5 million mansion wants to be next to a park that they can go hang out in. Like, what about that increases your property value?
What about that decreases your property value?
That you live next to a park where the public comes and goes.
What gets advertised when you go on Zillow that you are close to parks?
For normal people.
Okay.
Nobody that buys a $5 million house gives a shit if there's a park next door.
They don't go to parks at all. They don't care about what's around them.
Okay. Yeah, anyway. I don't understand it, so... All right, what else you got?
Nothing.
You ready for the news of the weird then? We're gonna do a short show. I gotta get finished packing because we're leaving. So we can do a little bit short. So,
boom. Never heard of it, but Alabama governor signs legislation naming Yellowhammer Cookie as official state cookie.
Is that Tuberville? Or he's the senator?
He's the senator.
Please tell me more about a Yellowhammer cookie. I want to know what a Yellowhammer cookie is.
Let me see if it talks about it. State cookie fourth grader submitted winning recipe, which includes pecans, peanut butter, and honey. Including
Pecans?
state vegetable, nut, and what? Oh, that's official state emblems.
Pecans, peanut butter, and honey. Peanut butter and honey's good. I don't know about pecans and peanut butter, though. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have official state all sorts of random shit. What's Tennessee's state official state cookie?
No idea. I think we mentioned it a couple weeks ago. The whole British cheese wheel competition or whatever. Apparently that was last weekend or something.
Tennessee is the chocolate chip, according to
What? So
Bake Magazine.
damn generic. Well, Tennessee made the news of the weird. I guess there were some church organs that got stolen and somebody turned them back in.
Stole the organ?
Yeah.
How do you steal?
They stole, I guess they were in a moving truck that was near its building. Let's see here. A little Penske truck this month, nearly 2,000 organ pipes for transport. It was going up to Boston. The truck was stolen after being loaded. A few days later, police found the truck and many of the nearly 90-year-old pipes.
So the thieves probably didn't know what they were stealing. They were stealing a truck.
Yeah, they
with
saw
stuff
a
in it.
moving truck.
Okay.
We're like, oh, there's got to be something in there worth some money.
All right. Yeah. I could see that as... Yeah.
All right, last one.
I was trying to think of some weird heist movie, like, we're going to steal the organ from the National Chapel.
Yeah. We got an Indian official suspended after he drained reservoir to retrieve phone he dropped while taking selfie.
Indiana?
India. An Indian official.
Drained a reservoir.
Yep.
How big is this reservoir?
Let's see if it says. He first asked local divers to jump in, so I guess it's relatively deep.
I mean, what's on this phone that it's so important that he gets it back and
It was 1,500 acres. More than 2 million liters of water were pumped out. Was it 4 liters to a gallon? No, 4 quarts in a gallon. Yeah.
That's a lot of water. I mean, that's close. About 4.
He found it, but it wouldn't start because it was waterlogged. Duh. Should have put it in rice, dummy.
I'm just trying to think, like, how does that, like... The only way that makes sense is there's something on that phone that you cannot let somebody else get their hands on.
Maybe.
Like that's the only thing that makes sense to me is that it's some sort of, like, he didn't want to get blackmailed for some content that was on there.
Government official, he's probably just got a shit ton of contacts. Like, it's going to be a pain in the ass to get everybody's number all over again.
I don't know. There's better ways to fix that problem than, I don't know.
Maybe he didn't have his shit backed up on the cloud.
Was it coming into the rainy season and he knew the reservoir was going to be filled right back up?
It sounded like he was just like, no, let's get my phone back.
It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so confused on so many things on that. Like, did he really think he was going to get the phone back and it was going to work?
Maybe.
I mean, like, the new iPhones are supposed to be water resistant. Like, I know one of my kids' friend got in the pool with it last summer, and I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm taking
I think there's a
underwater
time
videos."
limit on it. It says it can be submerged up to like 6 meters, but I don't think it's for like
A week. Right.
5 hours at a time. It's
Right.
like you can do like 5-10 minutes, but after that, like
That's what I'm saying. It's like, who out there, like, what kind of phone is it that you think you're actually going to get it back that it works? Like, I don't know. There's not I mean, he's a government official. He might have a special phone, but I'm just saying, like, of normal phones on the market, who thinks that they're going to actually recover it to work?
yeah, that's part of it. I mean, you've got, as an official, you probably got all sorts of emails that,
Right. Maybe some classified shit on there you didn't want to get.
yeah, not necessarily classified, but you've got emails back and forth with all sorts of different departments. I mean, luckily I've never lost a phone and
Yeah,
had
but I'm
to
saying,
try to
like,
like
even if-
recover everything that was in my phone.
Even if you do have all that stuff and you really want it back, who's thinking that they're going to get it back and it's going to work? Like, what are you, like, where, like,
Maybe
That's the part that I'm kind of lost on. Like,
maybe he was praying to one of the Hindu gods that it would all work out in the end. They have a pantheon, literally.
They do have a plethora. I just, again, like I'm trying to put my mind in the place where I've been like I'm going to the beach. If I drop my phone in the ocean,
maybe he's just a positive-minded person. He was like, I'm able to get this out.
I'm going to take the water for the entire community and flush it down the toilet so that I can get my phone back because I believe it's still going to work.
Maybe
he is a positive person. That's a good take.
It's possible. It's possible.
All right, so I think we're just going to skip next week.
Word.
If we do next week, might try to do a Saturday after I get back and then release Sunday. So best case scenario, we're going to be a day late next week. Worst case, we're probably just going to skip next week. So sorry, Chris Davis. Oh,
keep on running.
Yeah, keep on running and listen to us at double speed. I do want to. Somebody took a picture at a city council meeting this week, and he was sitting there.
So we should start talking really fast,
just to fuck with him. And there was it was a picture of like a group of people with some signs and stuff, but he was on the very edge of the picture, and he was like full on, like, I think I commented on, I was like, look at Chris Davis there, all Bond villain. Like he had his hand, like he was doing this thing with his fingers touching or whatever. Like I don't know how to describe that, but it's very like you go hairless cat petting, monocle, the whole thing. He was looking super, super sketchy. So I need to get him back in here. I haven't talked to him in a while.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll reach out to Chris Davis and see post vacation, see if they'll do your Chris Davis show. We'll make it up to you guys, I promise. Good night, everybody. Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, Voter Guide 23 will eventually show up. Favorite podcast provider, check that shit out. Tell your friends about us. Do the whole thing. Vacation is upon us, and we're going to go and enjoy ourselves at the beach. Happy birthday to Sam next week. You guys figure out what it is if you want to. But that's it, everybody. Have a great night. We did a show. We'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.